The wreckage groans under its own weight, metal twisting and creaking in protest. Flames lick at the broken wing, sending black smoke curling into the sky. Ethan pulls himself free from a collapsed row of seats, coughing violently as he inhales the acrid fumes. A woman sobs nearby, cradling a motionless figure in her lap. The cold wind rushes through the shattered cabin, biting at exposed skin. A section of the fuselage shifts suddenly, sending a cascade of debris tumbling onto the ground. Ethan stumbles forward, scanning the chaos for other survivors. Somewhere inside the wreck, a weak voice calls for help. Beyond the wreckage, an eerie silence looms, as if the wilderness itself is holding its breath. Ethan kneels beside a shivering man, wrapping him in a torn airline blanket. Samantha, a doctor, checks a young woman's pulse, her hands numb from the cold. The fire flickers lower, their only source of warmth quickly fading. A child clutches a stuffed animal, his face streaked with dirt and tears. A deep metallic groan echoes from the wreckage, making everyone freeze. Samantha looks up. "We need to move before that collapses." Ethan scans the wreckage. "We have to find supplies, food, water, anything." The wind picks up, carrying the distant sound of something moving beyond the debris. A shadow flickers across the broken fuselage, but when Ethan turns, there's nothing there. Ethan grips a twisted rail, pulling himself over the jagged wreckage. Samantha follows closely, stepping cautiously over broken glass and torn metal. "The emergency supplies should be stored near the cockpit," Ethan mutters. They move carefully, avoiding unstable sections that groan under their weight. A partially buried section of the fuselage blocks their path, forcing them to crawl through a narrow gap. Inside, the cockpit is a ruin. Broken controls, shattered glass, and the remains of the pilots still strapped into their seats. Samantha looks away, swallowing hard. "Let's just find what we need." Ethan spots a red emergency box wedged beneath a fallen panel. As he reaches for it, a sudden noise behind them makes both of them turn sharply. Ethan and Samantha return with the emergency kit, setting it down near the fire. A woman counts out the remaining food rations, her face grim. A man tries to reinforce part of the fuselage, but the structure groans under the weight of the damage. "We can't stay here forever," Samantha says, her breath visible in the freezing air. Ethan rubs his hands together. "Right now, we don't have a choice." The survivors work in silence, their exhaustion heavy in the cold night. Someone stokes the fire, but the flames are weak, barely holding back the darkness. From within the wreckage, a strange sound echoes, metal scraping against metal. Ethan glances at Samantha Date. "Did you hear that?" The fire sputters as the wind whips through the wreckage, momentarily darkening the camp. Ethan stands, his eyes locked on the ruined section of the plane. The sound comes again. Low, rhythmic, like something shifting in the wreckage. Samantha grips his arm. What if someone's still alive in there? A nervous murmur spreads through the group, hope mingling with fear. One of the survivors grabs a flashlight and moves toward the sound. The others watch, holding their breath as the beam of light cuts through the wreckage. A sudden sharp noise makes them all flinch. Something heavy shifts deep inside the ruins. Then, a weak, ragged voice calls out, "Help! Me!" Ethan steps forward, his breath shallow as he grips a makeshift torch. The wreckage groans again, as if shifting under an unseen weight. Samantha calls after him, "Be careful." The weak voice repeats, "Help, please." A broken panel blocks their way, forcing Ethan to push it aside with a grunt. Behind the twisted metal, a man is wedged between two collapsed seats, his face pale and drenched in sweat. His leg is trapped under debris, and blood soaks through his torn pant leg. The survivor gasps, his eyes unfocused. "I thought I was alone." Ethan exchanges a look with his companion. "We need to get him out, fast." The fire flickers as the cold wind whips through the camp. Samantha presses her hands together, trying to stop them from shaking. They should be back by now, someone mutters, eyes scanning the darkness. A child clings to their mother, silent and wide-eyed. The faint sound of something moving within the wreckage makes the group tense. Lisa, one of the older survivors, grips a piece of metal like a weapon. If it's not them, we don't wait to find out what it is, she warns. Mia exhales, rubbing her injured leg. They'll make it. Another gust of wind howls through the wreckage, carrying an unsettling silence in its wake. Ethan wipes sweat from his brow, despite the freezing cold. The survivor groans in pain as they attempt to lift the twisted metal pinning his leg. We have to do this carefully, Ethan mutters, repositioning himself. The wreckage shifts dangerously, sending small fragments clattering to the ground. His companion glances at the ceiling. This whole section could come down on us. Ethan exhales. Then we move faster. With a final effort, they pry the debris loose, freeing the man's leg. The survivor gasps in relief, though pain contorts his face. A loud creak echoes through the wreckage. Ethan's eyes widen. We need to go. Now. Lisa is the first to spot them. They're back. Samantha rushes forward, already pulling out strips of fabric to use as bandages. The injured man nearly collapses, his weight sagging between Ethan and his companion. Pace got a bad leg wound, Ethan explains, breathing hard. Samantha kneels beside the man, quickly assessing his condition. Carter helps ease him down near the fire, his face grim. We're running low on medical supplies, Samantha murmurs. The fire crackles weakly, its warmth barely holding back the freezing night. From deep within the wreckage, another noise stirs, this time not human. A deep, metallic groan shudders through the wreckage, making the ground tremble slightly. Lisa grips her makeshift weapon tighter, her breath coming in quick gasps. Mia's fingers dig into Carter's arm. Tell me you heard that. Ethan exchanges a glance with Samantha. That wasn't the plane settling. The injured man, despite his pain, shudders. Something's in there. A low scraping noise, like metal dragging against metal, echoes from the dark interior. Alex, the youngest of the group, takes an involuntary step back. What is that? Carter scans the wreckage, his face pale. I don't know, but I don't want to find out. The fire dims slightly as the wind picks up, and the night stretches on in unbearable silence. Ethan grips a jagged piece of metal, his breath coming in sharp bursts. The sound from the wreckage grows louder. Something is definitely moving inside. Lisa swallows hard. We need to know what we're dealing with. Carter kneels beside the fire, gripping a burning branch as an improvised torch. Mia's fingers tremble as she holds onto Alex. What if it's another survivor? The scraping noise stops, replaced by an eerie silence. Ethan exhales. I'm going in. Samantha grabs his arm. You can't go alone. Carter stands. Then we go together. Ethan ducks under a collapsed beam, the heat of his torch warming his frozen fingers. Carter follows closely, scanning the ruined cabin for movement. The air inside is thick with the scent of burnt plastic and fuel. A low creaking noise makes them stop in their tracks. Something shifts behind a pile of broken luggage. Carter's grip tightens on the torch. Show yourself. A weak, rattling breath echoes from the shadows. Ethan takes a step forward, heart pounding. Who's there? A skeletal figure in a tattered uniform emerges, one of the pilots, barely alive. Samantha presses a water bottle to the pilot's lips, but his hands shake too much to hold it. Lisa watches him cautiously. How did you survive? The pilot exhales, his breath ragged. Not alone. Ethan exchanges a glance with Carter. What do you mean? The pilot shudders violently, eyes darting toward the wreckage. Something. Watching. Waiting. He gasps, gripping Ethan's sleeve. Mia pulls her blanket tighter around herself. We need to get out of here. Carter scans the darkened trees beyond the fire. If we move, we need to do it now. A distant growl rumbles through the wreckage, sending a shiver through the group. Ethan steadies his hands as he aims the flare gun toward the sky. The shot bursts into the air, illuminating the wreckage in red light. Lisa shields her eyes, watching the flare disappear into the night. Mia whispers, "Please, let someone see it." Carter listens for any distant response, any sign of a search team. The pilot shudders violently, muttering incoherently under his breath. A sharp howl echoes in the distance, closer than before. Alex clutches Lisa's arm. That wasn't a coyote. Ethan reloads the flare gun, just in case they need to fire another warning. The rhythmic thumping of helicopter blades breaks through the freezing night. Lisa gasps, pointing toward the sky. "They're here." Ethan waves both arms, relief flooding through his body. Mia sobs, clutching Alex as they collapse onto the frozen ground. Carter steadies the pilot, whispering, "You're gonna make it." The searchlight sweeps across the wreckage, locking onto the group. A voice crackles over a loudspeaker. "We see you. Stay where you are." Lisa closes her eyes, letting exhaustion finally take over. As the helicopter descends, the wreckage fades into the background, a place they'll never forget, but one they'll finally leave behind.